Hey everybody, welcome back to Breakfast All Day. It's a brand new week. Matt, Christy, Alonso, we're all here to talk about the week just passed, news and updates and things that are happening in our ever-changing, ever-wonderful world. We'll be getting to marquees in a moment, but first, we're going to start with Christy's weekly list of news items and everything that's going on out there.
It's a complicated world out there right now. And this moment in time where we are feels a lot like where we were about 3 months ago when George Floyd was killed and all of the Black Lives Matter protests were happening. Today happens to be the anniversary of the March on Washington. And so there's a giant march going on, a big Black Lives Matter march going on right now as we speak. And all of this is coming to a head right as the Democratic and Republican conventions are happening. And so it's interesting to see how people do or do not choose to address what is happening. But in response to the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the father of three who was shot 7 times in the back in front of his kids, who was reaching into his car, we're seeing a lot of people using their platform, using their celebrity to shine a light on yet again, like enough is enough. Like what has to happen for change to occur, you know? And so the big thing is, in the midst of the pandemic, of course, all of the NBA games are being played in the Orlando bubble. And so like starting with the Milwaukee Bucks, 40 miles away from Kenosha, Wisconsin, they said, we're not playing our game. And then one by one, various teams said, we're not going to play. It has spread to other sports. At one point, both the Lakers and the Clippers were going to pull out of the NBA playoffs entirely. LeBron James, on and off the court, has been a huge leader in terms of civil rights, in terms of using his wealth and his fame and his clout to register voters, to open schools. I mean, he walks the walk. He does all this, and so people look to him for guidance. And at first, he was understandably angry and upset, and the Lakers were going to just walk away entirely. And now everyone's going to come back, and they're going to finish these games. My former editor at the AP, Jesse Washington, who now writes for The Undefeated, had a really good piece on this. He also did an episode of the Michael Jordan series with me, and he wrote a piece in The Undefeated about how all these players are doing more good to go back and play and use that visibility and use that platform. And they could do more good there than they would be marching in the streets with everybody else. Similar to like John Carlos and the '68 Olympics and them standing with their arms raised on the podium, the medal podium. Being out there and being visible matters. Naomi Osaka, a tennis player who is her father's Haitian and her mother's Japanese. And she pulled out of this tennis tournament that is a warm-up for the U.S. Open. And tennis complied with her, and they postponed all their matches that day in solidarity. And she wrote this really eloquent piece about how, I'm an athlete, but I'm a Black woman first. And MLB, Alonso, you actually posted this yourself. MLB, I did. One by one games were not being played. The Mets-Marlins game yesterday was really powerful because as the first pitch was about to happen, both teams came forward and they lined the base paths, and they took 42 seconds of silence in honor of Jackie Robinson, of course, war number 42. And then they all walked away. And they said, we're not playing this game. And they left a Black Lives Matter T-shirt on home plate instead. So it's fascinating and it's encouraging, but it's like, we're here again. We're at this moment again. And like, what the fuck has to happen for things to change?
I'm hearing more calls for a general strike, which is not something we do in the United States, because unlike other countries, a lot of people don't have a safety net, and they have to work 1, 2, 3 jobs to like keep their apartments and keep their families fed and that kind of thing. But I think that more and more, we are hitting this boiling point. I want to share a tweet from Solomon Giorgio, who's a really smart stand-up, who said the amount of anger towards athletes striking shows the expectation of Black lives far exceeds how much they matter. You don't deserve to see us shine if you don't care when we die. And like you have these athletes who are great at what they do, and they are deciding to deprive people of their greatness because they are, they have a target on their back the second they're off the court, because they live in this country that is founded on systemic racism, continues to exercise systemic racism. And, I don't know. We've talked for so long about, not just within our lifetimes, but well before any of us were around. This has been an ongoing thing in this country. And at some point you have to wonder, like, when is enough enough? And I hope that these gestures and these statements and this action is bringing us to a new place.
I should mention also the WNBA, which has always been at the forefront of any kind of social movement involving sports, and they do not get enough widespread credit for it, and they should. A bunch of players took a knee. They had Jacob Blake spelled out across the front of their T-shirts, and they each had 7 shots on the back of their T-shirts, and it looked like blood was coming out of them. From the back, it was terrifying and so powerful. Also, Doc Rivers, the Clippers coach, had a very emotional statement after a game recently. He was asked about it at the press conference, and he got choked up. Robert Horry, former Laker, now is a commentator for Spectrum Sportsnet here in LA, also got very choked up talking about, having to explain to his kids when they leave the house, like, you need to come home, safely. I don't care if it means getting down on the ground. You comply with a police officer. You don't let your rage show. Don't do anything to put yourself in danger. I want you coming home to me. And he was very emotional talking about it. And I think so many African American fathers probably are.
What's maddening about that, what's infuriating, is that even in spite of that talk, like, that's no guarantee. Right?
Yeah, you can comply and get shot.
It's no fucking guarantee. And it is, and look, like, chances are most people that are watching us, like, at least in some sense, they at least vaguely agree with us. And one of the things I a little bit want to keep this focused on is that, Jacob Blake got shot by a cop 7 times, right? And there's going to be a lot of people who are gleefully, some people who are like, well, he had a criminal record. And he was reaching for something.
He had a knife.
Like whatever. Here's the thing. Step number 1. The fucking cops do not fucking get to fucking execute people. Like, absolute. Like, that's not how this fucking works.
In broad daylight.
This is not Judge Dredd. It isn't. That's not what we do, right? Like, we look at movies, and look, like, I'm the first to say that Tombstone's a great movie. We look at movies like Wyatt Earp, where you see, we have this long history of celebrating the lawman who goes and, like, has that two-fisted justice and takes out the bad guy. Like, that's fucking bullshit. That's not a civilized society. That's not what we're about. Then,
especially when the armed white guys get, like, peacefully arrested.
Right. On top of all of this, a fucking 17-year-old kid who shouldn't even legally, it's murky as to whether or not legally he can even carry a long gun, goes and shoots somebody, and the cops, like, yeah, okay, well, I guess we'll arrest him. Like, it's stupefying. And getting back to a little bit about, like, where the NBA players and other athletes are talking about, maybe not continuing to play. On the face of it, I'm somewhat on board with them clapping out for the rest of the fucking season, right? And going and marching, because why would you participate in an economy that, in a country that continues to show over and over and over and over again that you're expendable, right? No matter who you are, right? A cop could pull over LeBron James. I mean, how many times have we heard from male black celebrities about them getting pulled over, right?
Don Cheadle's talked about that, yeah.
Right, and Chris Rock has, like, this is not a civilized society. It isn't, right? And so when you hear about things like Colorado talking about getting rid of qualified immunity, which is a huge part of the problem, right? Qualified immunity, in case anyone's missed it, is the idea that cops aren't personally liable for doing something in the line of duty. Colorado, I believe, is a state that has talked about getting rid of that, or one of the cities in Colorado. And half the force is like, well, we're not going to be cops. Good. If that's the kind of cop you're going to be, then fuck off. Fuck off and leave. Absolutely. Like, if that's what you think you need to do your job, you're fucking wrong. You're not there to protect people. And yeah, I know, I'm sure I'll get blowback for this.
No.
Don't care. Come at me, bro. Don't care.
Matt, for those of you who are listening to the podcast and not watching, Matt's got his angry Hawaiian print visor on today, so he's ready for action.
I cannot tell you how upset I am that I've had to get out of the pool and talk about this.
And talk about racism again.
This is why we can't have nice things. God, no. In all seriously, like, this is, and I'll tip off a little bit of a discussion that I'll try and not go way down the rabbit hole on. The appeal of the original Bill and Ted's is their motto of be excellent to each other. And it seems like the vast majority of police and people who are bigots in this country, and that overlapping Venn diagram, are doing the opposite of that. And it's not okay. I reject that. Like, I reject the idea that people are going to be selfish and bigoted. Like, if you can't be excellent to someone else, then find someplace else where you don't have to talk to anyone at all and just go there.
And reform doesn't work. We have to be talking about abolition.
I mean, The idea of reform sounds amazing, but the people who, it seems like increasingly get drawn into a career in law enforcement are doing it for the wrong reasons and with the wrong ideologies.
And there's lots of money in the private prison system, and there's a big industry in that, and like it's all of a piece, right? I mean, we all watch 13, like or 13th, like it's yes, this country was founded on free labor, and there was a war over it, even though people would be like, oh, it's states' rights, it's independence. Yeah, independence to own slaves, bullshit. And that pivoted, a lot of people successfully pivoted into having this, what ultimately ends up being this prison population pipeline, and they're still making money off of it. And it's fucked up.
I should mention a couple of other news items that are relevant to this topic before we talk about other stuff. So the NBA did decide to go back and keep doing their playoff games, but about 100 employees of the NBA in New York are striking today. And then a bunch of NBA referees had their own march where they were all wearing black T-shirts that said "Everybody versus racism." So you're seeing that all over the place. And then
wait,
even if you play, go ahead.
The referees should be on this. Let's put the refs in charge. The referees should be able to eject anyone in this country that is a bigot or a racist, and they just you're out. Let's let the referees handle it. We don't need cops anymore. Fuck cops. We don't need a police force. We need referees. That's
They've got whistles.
Right. No, look, like the referees.
Authority.
Right. The referees are. Is there racism in the referee ranks? Sure. But is it as bad as it is with the cops? No. I would say that's my argument. I say we pivot the entire law enforcement kind of industry apparatus into rules and referees. That's it.
Okay. I mean, even places like my little alma mater of Southern Methodist University, not the most liberal place in the world, all of a whole bunch of their student athletes just today did a big protest on the steps of Dallas Hall, the giant building that is like our symbol, chanting Black Lives Matter. So places like that, it's hopefully spreading all over the country to various places like that. So.
And meanwhile, Fox News will continue to call Black Lives Matter, a nest of Marxists or whatever the hell their version of this is.
It's a terrorist organization, unlike QAnon, which is very fine people.
Oh, absolutely.
Like me.
Yes.
Other sports news, and then we'll move on to other topics. All NBA arenas are going to be transformed into polling places, it was announced just today. Which gives plenty of room for people to spread out, so you're not like in someone's garage or like the library or wherever your polling place is. They're turning every NBA arena into a polling place, so there's plenty of room. It's a matter of how do you get there, because
I was going to say, are NBA arenas downtown, in residential areas? I
mean, the Palace at Auburn Hills, where the Pistons play, is in a more of like a suburban place. Staples is downtown.
Yeah, that American Airlines arena they built in Dallas is pretty close to I
mean, Madison Square Garden is right smack in the middle of Manhattan, so I guess it can be done in some places, but that is an interesting development. And speaking of arenas or stadiums, the Rams and the Chargers here in LA when they begin their season. And again, how the fuck NFL is going to play and everyone's not going to get COVID after the first week is whatever. But the Rams and the Chargers are both playing in this new $5 billion stadium, the SoFi Stadium here in Inglewood. They're going to play with no fans in attendance.
What about cheerleaders?
$5 billion. No,
Are there going to be cheerleaders?
I don't know. Probably not.
I'm so glad that LA's libraries have everything they need so that we can now also build a $5 billion football stadium.
But it's amazing. And it was delayed by a year because there was so much rain a year ago in January, like a year and a half ago, January, that they had to delay construction. So that made it more expensive.
Great.
Anyway, what else is noteworthy? I want to mention while we're still talking about Black Lives. Go ahead, Matt. Yes.
So on the social justice news front, did you guys hear about the Confederate statue in Lake Charles?
Yeah,
yes.
Flooded. Yeah, I was going to mention the hurricane that hit the whole area known as the Cajun Riviera, the whole southwestern area there.
And look, like I have relatives that live down there, and I'm not wishing damage or loss of life or hardship on anyone.
Except Confederate statues.
I am gleefully laughing at the irony of the town that voted to keep their South's Defenders statue up, and Hurricane Laura had other ideas.
I say, Matt, where your people from? What town are your people from?
New Orleans and where are they now? Not Shreveport, but Metairie too. I had relatives in Metairie. Metairie, sorry.
Metairie.
Right.
My first job out of school.
And Napoleonville.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I worked for the Shreveport Times in Natchitoches, Louisiana, which is where Steel Magnolias takes place. It's the first town in the Louisiana Purchase.
Natchitoches, not to be confused with Nacogdoches.
Or Natchez, all different places. Also, one more
we don't
thing
need no stinking Natchez.
If we're still on the topic of Black Lives Matter, this is a story that happened at my high school, El Camino Real High School in Woodland Hills, California. There was a teacher during the first week, an English teacher who wore, during one of her Zoom classes, a shirt that said, "I can't breathe" on it. And that was part of the curriculum that the district had provided as far as how to have a dialogue with your students about all that's going on in our world now. A dad complained. A YouTube conservative commentator picked up on this and ran with it. And it became this total shit show where this teacher got doxxed. She and her daughter have gotten death threats. She has a 9th grader who's a daughter. They've had to leave their home.
And these are the same fucks who complain about cancel culture, by the way.
They're canceling this, right? And it's not like she was just some maverick out there on her own doing this rogue thing wearing this shirt. It is part of the district curriculum about having this conversation in a district that has like 600,000 students and is incredibly diverse. And so there's a whole big story in the LA Times about this. On Wednesday, about 100 students and parents and people had a whole protest in front of El Camino in support of this teacher. She had to take out restraining orders against both the dad and the commentator. It's nuts.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so this is where my ref idea comes in. Both those guys get thrown out of the game for unsportsmanlike conduct. Done. Yeah. Like they both get penalties. They both get fined. Done.
Hit the showers.
Exactly.
Cool off. Okay, so school did resume in the last couple of weeks, but it resumed around here this past week. It went pretty well, I gotta say. I'm currently sitting where Nick's desk is usually, and we're doing Zoom classes, and I think so far so good. He did Zoom PE out in the backyard. The coach had them all doing jumping jacks and burpees and push-ups and things. Baxter went outside and helped. It was very supportive of him.
It is tough to make the kids run laps these days.
It is. It's strange. I used to help out with a running club at Nick's school. Like I want to try and get him to run some more, but that's not going to happen.
Exactly.
So what else is of note? Okay, so we also have actual movie news. We are a film podcast. We should talk about movies.
Yes.
The other thing that's happening in our world is a movie called Tenet. A scrappy little indie called Tenet. Perhaps you've heard of it. It is out now in parts of the world. Colleagues of ours have seen this in the United States, not just in London. And I know that the primary reviews came out of London, and places like the New York Times, LA Times, and the Trade sent their people.
TheWrap.
Yeah, TheWrap sent their people there. And then I know that it's like my editor, Brian, saw it in Chicago this week and wrote about it out of there. So the start to screen Tenet. Also in the audience for Tenet was Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise, who documented his experience. There's this bizarre video that's out there in which Tom Cruise is in a car, in a mask, getting all pumped to go see Tenet. And then like someone shooting video of him in his stadium seating in a theater in London where there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of social distancing going on. Did you guys watch the video?
Yeah, also like Tom Cruise, have your people turn off their phone in the theater. Like we've not, yes, okay, don't go to the theater, but if you are going to go to the theater, turn off your fucking phone.
This is not the optimal theatrical experience that Nolan wants for all of us.
Indeed.
Exactly. What's next? You know what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen with Nolan's next film is that he's going to actually X-ray everybody and make sure they can't take phones in.
Full body cavity search.
Right, and everybody's going to be, gagged so that they can't make any noise. So it'll be a perfect experience.
I've been trying really hard to not read anything about what anybody thinks about Tenet. I've not read a single review. Sorry. I love you, Brian. Have not even read my own editor's review. I don't want to know. And the thing is, it comes out. This is so weird. It's on the film week schedule for next week for September 4th. So I don't know where it's opening.
I have friends in other parts of the country who've told me they have bought tickets.
But like, where here is it opening next week? Because I don't think it is. I don't think it's opening in Los Angeles or New York because the theaters are closed in both those places. And I think I can't remember if it's this movie. There was some movie where they said it was only going to open in drive-ins in markets where it's also playing in theaters. It was Tenet.
Oh, okay. That's the one. So if you live in a city where there are theaters that are showing it, then you might also have a drive-in that's showing it. But if you live in LA or New York and there's only drive-ins open, you are SOL.
What's interesting is that I have to assume that the laws about theaters are also applying to screening rooms, right? Because we haven't heard anything from Warner Brothers about screenings, which they could absolutely. I mean, Warner Brothers has 4 or 5 screening rooms on the lot, right? And they could absolutely have a screening for 2 or 3 people. I've been in screenings that they've set up.
Or they a lot of times for movies like this, I bet they would use the Dolby room,
right? But
which is pretty small,
right? But they're not doing that, right? And I guess part of that is because they've, as we've seen for Nolan movies in the past, like they want it on the big Universal IMAX screen, right?
Which would seem like a place. Right, he makes a schlep to the Universal IMAX, in Universal City. Now. So, and that is a giant place, and I feel like when we've been there, they've had every single seat filled for them. Is there a way to do a whole bunch of them where they like stagger them?
Yeah, it's just money.
How do they determine the hierarchy of who gets to go when, right? Like
they don't want to spend the money.
They could if they wanted to. I don't know that I would go. I still don't feel comfortable about any of this, even with distancing in place. Like there's still the air conditioning to deal with. There's unless you're sitting in I like to sit in the back row anyway, but I just think like there's still droplets floating around. It all just seems like a bad idea. And again, I think this all comes down to like, why is this coming from Nolan? Is it coming from Warner Brothers? Who decided that this is the movie that could not wait until 2021, that it just had to be this year? It had to be now. Pandemic be damned. And apparently audiences be damned too. Like, just the idea that they are forcing people to put themselves in what is essentially harm's way. If you read that piece over at, was it the playlist that had the where they went to that conference call with all the different theaters, and they asked AMC about, well, what's this thing about how you're going to upgrade the air conditioning filters when possible, and still haven't gotten a straight answer from AMC about that. Like, this is just all such a crapshoot, and everybody's hygiene theater, and they're wiping shit down, and they're giving you, hand dispensers, but it's about air conditioning and droplets and people in a room eating and drinking and laughing and crying and whatever the fuck else. And it's just like, this all just makes me nuts right now.
And I feel like a drive-in screening of Tenet kind of defeats the purpose of everything you go to a Nolan movie for.
Sure, the audio's not going to be great, and
I'll tell you what, though, I go to a Nolan movie expecting. I go to a Nolan movie expecting that I'm going to still be alive in 6 months. So, I resent the fact
spinning.
that
your top is wobbling, Matt.
I really resent that Warner Brothers and Nolan have decided that they're going to open this now, and if I want to see it, I got to put my life at risk. And guess what? I don't want to see it that badly. There's kind of no movie that I want to see that bad.
It's all money. So speaking of movies and money, New Mutants also was out this week.
Yeah,
let's talk about that.
I want to actually go back to the Nolan point. Like, this whole experience a little bit has actually made me far less interested in his film output going forward. Like, the way he's handled this, the way he's talked about it, I'm like, yeah, okay, so he doesn't give a shit about his audience health and safety.
I would think if among the handful of people who would have the clout to tell Warner Brothers, no, we're not releasing this now, he would be one of them. So the fact that it is coming out now feels like it's either at his urging or at least at his complicity.
Right. Yeah. And I appreciate that in an ever-changing medium that he has been so vocally a proponent of the theatrical experience and of shooting on film. I get that and I appreciate that, but these are extraordinary circumstances and we need to look at things as such. Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of his work, and I am also kind of like souring on this, but I also want to go into Tenet with an open mind, right? Can we do that at this point? Like, there's so much baggage attached to this fucking movie.
It's become a metaphor now, like it's become this thing that stands for all this other policy and all the mistakes that have been made about this pandemic and all the greed that has emerged out of this pandemic is now typified by this movie through no fault of this movie. This movie was sitting in a can months ago, ready to go. But now you're right. The circumstances have turned it into this other thing now. And it's going to be hard to watch it without thinking of those circumstances.
I mean, we've all been doing this for a very long time because we're old people, but I would really like to hope and think that I can go into it and just assess it on its artistic merits. I really hope to be able to do that.
Yeah.
In like 2 years, maybe.
Yeah,
right? No, seriously. Like,
if I have to see it in the theater, then you're going to wait for me to be ready to go into the theater, and we're not. The world is not there yet.
Bump it back a year. No, but that's the thing. Like, bump it back a year. Are you really that worried about piracy? Like,
no, I think it's about money. That's all it is. It's like a $200 million movie. They want to make that money back. I'm sure that's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. When a movie sits on the shelf, the interest rates accrue because, like, you've spent all this money and you're not making it back, and there are all these costs involved. Like, there was a book I read called Roadshow about how Fox spent all this money for the rights to Hello Dolly to put the musical out, but part of the deal was they couldn't release the movie until the Broadway run ended, and the Broadway run just went on and on and on, so they were stuck sitting on this really expensive movie for a long time and like having to deal with all these costs involved with that. And so yeah, I get it, there is money involved here, but you know what, there's also lives involved here. And so not only does this make me think not great about Nolan moving forward, but about Warner Brothers in general. I think this is going to be a thing that I think about when I think of them. Like, oh yeah, them. Like, in the way that, you're going to be thinking about the people whose Instagram stories have them all like hugging and hanging out and going to a party and woo, when this is all over, you'll be like, yeah, you were out there like getting the Rona. I'm going to remember the corporations who were shitty right now, Amazon and Warner Brothers and a lot of other folks.
I do have that. I have one of my mom friends keeps posting pictures of like camping trips with other kids and families and like dinner with other moms in their maxi dresses. And I'm like, stop hugging.
Yes.
Put on a mask. Stop. Anyway, we should talk about New Mutants too, which is out. You guys, if you're listening and watching, we're not going to review New Mutants this week because we didn't see it, and there was no opportunity to see it.
It was not shown to the media in any form or fashion, which is not uncommon for especially long-shelved movies that are, alleged to suck and the studios want to hide. But the fact they're doing it right now at this particular moment in history is just an extra dollop of really what the fuck.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's been plenty of times that, and we all know this, right? Nobody hides a good movie. So a movie doesn't screen for critics, and you're like, that just always, it's like, oh.
Once in a blue moon, it's a good movie they just don't know what to do with.
Right, but this is an example of a movie that didn't screen for critics. They didn't do any screenings, and since they are insisting on opening it in theaters and not going to streaming, then those of us that live in places where it's still super risky to go to the theater, we're like, yeah, okay, well, we're not doing it.
I mean, we physically can't. Logistically, we can't.
We would have to drive to Vegas or something.
Las Vegas, yes.
Yeah, luckily, I'm technically furloughed at TheWrap, but I'm still in touch with them all the time. And they were like, "Who do we have who's not in New York or Los Angeles who could review this?" And Michael Nordine lives in Denver, and I'm like, "Look, if you want to say no to this, please do, because I feel weird asking you, but they would like a review." And he was like, "Sure, I'd love to." And he got back to me and said that he actually felt it was a safe experience. That there was the seats were blocked off and there was a lot of room around him. And so it's like he made the choice to do that, but I personally wouldn't. And I really resent the fact that Disney put editors in that position. And I think a lot of sites we're seeing are refusing to review the film for that very reason.
Right. So the AV Club, IndieWire, RogerEbert.com are among the places, Tiber, the Boston Globe, are among the people and places who opted not to for that very reason, because they did not feel like it would have been a safe experience for their writers. And it's just uncool in general that it's not being made available to people outside the theatrical experience right now. Yeah. I mean, is it ever coming to streaming?
It'll be on Disney Plus by the end of the year. Mark my words.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be out in probably a few weeks. But the thing is, I think this is a movie again where they wouldn't have screened it at all. Right? They weren't doing screenings for the junket, and so they're not screening it. And because, again, I haven't gone to look at the reviews all that much, but I hear it's. The couple of reviews that the early reactions were like, this movie stinks.
Well, it's currently at 20% on the tomato meter with an audience score of 55%. And that's not good. And tellingly, I sent you guys a link to this, Bob McLeod, who, did he co-create the New Mutants? Is
Apparently so, yeah, the characters, yeah.
He wrote a whole thing on Facebook and on Twitter saying, how unhappy he is with this version of it, how they made
spelled
changes.
His name wrong.
They spelled his name wrong. It's been sitting there for 3 years.
Yeah, it's not like this was rushed into theater. It's been sitting around for a while.
They whitewashed characters that intentionally were diverse in the source material, and so
that's an interesting take a little bit, because he's the artist on when the comic first started. Claremont was the writer, and then after McLeod, you had that legendary Bill Sienkiewicz run, he's been super involved. He's been drawing stuff for them and pounding the pavement for this movie. Clearly McLeod was kind of left out.
I think it's very interesting. Anyway, I never really had any great interest in seeing this, although I like Anya Taylor-Joy, for example. And now I'm like if we never see New Mutants, is that okay? Or should we, out of curiosity?
The idea of another X-Men movie does not excite me in the slightest. I have an X-Men ranking at TheWrap, and I am not updating it anytime soon. But that's a franchise that is
but it's an intriguing idea, right? These 4 or 5 kids that are locked up, and it's treated like a horror movie. The idea of suddenly manifesting powers like this that you don't know how to control, which was part of the deal with that original comic, treating that as a horror story, that could be really cool if it's executed well, but it sounds like this wasn't. The other thing is like, and they've been holding on to that movie for 2 years. Of course it's not good.
Yeah.
And speaking of people who like, you know, I think poorly of and how they're handling this, the fact that director Josh Boone was like, no, go to the theaters. It's great. You should.
It's a little tone
What theater
down.
is he going to?
Yeah, exactly. You first, Chumley.
Along these lines, the LA Times had a story yesterday about how production is resuming, but particularly on commercial sets.
Mhm.
Crews are really worried about what precautions are being taken to keep folks safe. You know, there's so much commercial production that goes on all over Los Angeles. And I guess, you know, unlike some film and TV production that is resuming, on these smaller, quicker commercial shoots, they're perhaps not adhering to the kind of safety regulations that they should be. And so some of the anecdotes in this article were like people eating lunch inside a van with the windows rolled up and like no one's wearing masks and things like that. Right?
It's been really hot.
You need the air conditioning on to eat your sandwich. And so just stuff like that, you know, and people have been out of work for so long that they want to say yes and they want to take these gigs. And yet, is it dangerous if they do so?
Well, I know that what's been wagging the dog on production in terms of safety standards has been the guilds. The guilds are the ones who have been like, you guys have to do this, and this, or no go. And so if commercials don't deal with like SAG-AFTRA or the Writers Guild or the Directors Guild in the way that you know, or IATSE or whoever.
IATSE is the powerful one, yeah.
Yeah, the way that other shoots would, then yeah, I could see where it's kind of the Wild West there. I was no, go ahead.
The real question is, what's happening on the porn sets these days?
Is that the real question? That's not my real question.
How is
That's a real question.
Is that your real question?
You guys act like it's not your real question. Come on.
Yeah, look, I've got such a backlog to catch up with. Like, I really can't, you know, if there's not new production, it's fine by me. Anyway, I'm in a Patreon group for a podcast devoted to Hallmark movies. You'll be surprised to know. And they did a Zoom conversation with a guy who is currently directing a Lifetime Christmas movie in Nashville. And he was talking about how, like, every 2 or 3 days, he gets tested, the crew gets tested, the cast gets tested, and they have to do both the 30-minute turnaround test, like the quick response, but then also the one that takes longer because the quick response isn't always as reliable. So, you know, it's the whole face masks and, you know, the distancing. And I've seen pictures from some Hallmark Christmas sets where they're using mannequins as background, like for like in the back of long shots.
Like
where
in
you just
baseball
need
games.
Now is the time to bring back your mannequin reboot.
There you go.
No, it's not going to stop us now.
But like, you know, so like in wedding scenes where like you have to fill up the pews, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that, you know, but look, at this point, Hallmark is saying they're doing 40 and Lifetime is saying they're doing 30. And that's by the end of the year. So
Alonso,
they're figuring it out.
Did you see the tweet that I can't remember who said it, but said that watch out this year for Hallmark's A Very COVID Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
A big city boy and a small town girl both get on the wrong Zoom call.
Yes, yeah, I've seen that one floating around. It's funny because one of the ones that's coming out this year is called Too Close for Christmas. And I was like, really? This year we had to do this title? I don't know.
You know, I keep thinking, boy, you know, the business model is if we could come up with a affordable air-conditioned hazmat suit, we'd be making some serious
I have seen a Kickstarter for one that like it looks like an old school sort of like scuba thing where it fits over your shoulders and it's clear glass and there's a fan in back to circulate air in and out and yeah, like it's I don't know if
those old diving suits. Yeah.
I said, yeah, but I mean, but it just goes down to here. But like they went way past their goal, and they were supposed to be manufacturing. I got to go back and look at that site and see if they're still happening.
How are we not? You know, it's 2020. How do we not have the big glass space helmets?
Exactly. Yeah, like those Poochie stewardess uniforms for Braniff Airlines in the late 60s.
I have a few good things to tell you.
Oh, do please.
Yes, I have some good news. there's going to be a fundraiser on October 1st online called Viva Broadway, Hear Our Voices. It's a benefit concert to celebrate Latinos in theater. It's like Chita Rivera, Gloria Estefan, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Talia. They're headlining this. It's a fundraiser for Broadway Cares / Equity Fight AIDS. Nice. And so that's a nice thing that's happening. That is October 1st.
Cool.
Have you guys seen Jim Gaffigan's Twitter feed lately?
Yes, I have.
Shit. Oh my God. So Jim Gaffigan, who, his persona is like nice guy, kind of folksy dad.
Laid back, laconic.
Right.
Although some of the movie roles he's had lately are like.
Yes.
Like
American Dreamer. And then he was in Tesla, which we talked about recently.
Right.
I did a Q&A with him for American Dreamer. He is funny. He's cool as shit. And so this Twitter persona that we're seeing coming out is truly, seemingly, really him. He's gotten in the last 24 hours so political, so biting.
He's flipped the table.
So insightful. It's fun, but funny too. But like he's got a lot to say.
No fucks left to give.
And I get not a fuck to be found. And one of the funniest exchanges that I keep seeing out there was some woman said to him, "You're going to lose a lot of fans because of this. You should stick to comedy." And her name is Karen. And he wrote back, "Oh, fuck you, Karen."
Right. God help you if you are shooting your mouth off and your name is Karen these days. God help you. Like,
anyway, that's for he's a good follow anyway, so he's worth a follow now. And
I love this the thing we said before about cancel culture is like, yeah, don't talk to me about cancel culture when you fucking refer to anybody speaking their mind in a way you don't like as virtue signaling. Like, go fuck yourself.
Anyway, that's hilarious. I did not. Go ahead, Matt.
I do like one of my best friends is actually named Karen, and I have another one of my best friends who is Becky. And I'm a little like, I know, and I'm a little like, kind of feel bad for him. Like those are my tiki buddies that I go to like Tiki Oasis with, and they're super cool. I'm just like,
I have a good friend named Karen too, and she's kind of leaned into it. Like her Twitter name is now Karen TM, and but she's very un-Karen.
That's really funny. I did not watch any of the RNC, and I definitely did not watch last night on the Republican National Convention, but I followed some of these things on Twitter. And the funniest thing, and if you have not seen this, please Google this, is that Melania wore this lime green Valentino dress.
Yes.
Her stylist must be punking her because you've got to know better than to wear that shade of green on television.
After Queen Elizabeth.
People have had a fucking field day, like using the chroma key element of that and putting everything from like an actual weather forecast or like an I'm with stupid t-shirt pointing to Trump.
A giant coronavirus things, pictures of Trump and Jeffrey Epstein.
Right. I seen rioting, like pictures of rioting on her shirt, her dress. Like
pictures of Biden and Kamala.
That's why floral prints will never.
Kamala.
That's why floral prints will never steer you wrong.
Yes,
it's hard to chroma key.
Yes,
and death statistics.
Yes, that's really funny. And then also, apparently, August 31st is National Eat Outside Day.
That's not where I thought that sentence was going.
Eat outside day.
Who was side?
I know, and I know this because I got some email from Universal City Walk saying, "Come to City Walk and enjoy Universal Eat Outside Day."
International Dog
I'll
Day.
eat something on the balcony.
Was that?
The International Dog Day posts on Instagram and everywhere were killing me. I want a dog so bad. But my husband and I are super allergic to everything.
You can come visit Sabrina. She'd love to see you.
All the
I would love that.
Anyway, that's all the news I have, guys. I know that's I didn't have a whole lot at first, and then it all kind of came spilling in at once. So lots going on. Anything I missed or forgot or anything? We should move on to movies.
Nothing comes to mind.
Let's do it.
Okay. Movies? Marquees.
Oh, duh. Marquees. Yes, I forgot about that. I keep forgetting about that. But people are sweet.
Forgetting that there's Marquees.
I do. So, Matt, tell us about Marquees, please. We have a lot of photos this week.
Yes, we do. Hang on just a second. Let me share my screen. All right.
The
We're sharing our
Marquees of
screen.
Chesterborough.
Yes. And here is the first one that
Oh,
this one is from Christian Michaelangelo. I assume that it's Christian Michaelangelo, not Michelangelo, maybe. Anyway, this is up in Mammoth Mountain. I've actually seen stuff at this theater. Closed for now. We tried. I'm using this on the opening segment, or the opening picture. So thanks for sending that, Christian. He also sent one more. This is from the Westwood Village. First responders and frontline workers, may the force be with you, it says on the Westwood Village Theater. The Fox.
did Star Wars premiere there?
I don't know. Maybe.
A lot of films
Westwood.
do.
That's like the worst place to ever have to go to a premiere is when they have it at one of those big theaters in Westwood. Like the parking is a pain in the ass. And traffic.
But boy, the second I feel safe doing so, I will be thrilled to go to one.
All right. So next up, we Daniel Cibener, who has sent stuff to us from New York, sent us pictures from the Ziegfeld, which I think they had stopped showing movies there at the in the Midtown, right? Anyway, the marquee says NY Strong. There's another view of it there. NY Strong. And then next he sends us a picture. This is from the Beacon, where they've turned the sign. The Beacon Theater, the sign is turned off above the marquee, but it's got a big bright LED marquee that says "We Heart New York."
I saw Radiohead there.
Ooh.
At the Beacon Theater. It was really cool. Back when I was still living in New York, it was one of those MTV $2 bill shows. And this is back when I was still covering entertainment for the AP. And I saw Radiohead in a place which is a pretty intimate theater. And it was like the best concert I've ever been to in my life.
Okay.
I seriously doubt that. I hate Radiohead.
We're aware of that because you have shitty taste, Matt.
Whatever.
Oh, you're both right.
All right. So Geoff Swanson sent us these latest roundup. His latest batch. He says, here are a few marquees for your weekly roundup from the Riverview Theater in Minneapolis. This is a quote that says, everything good that's ever happened to me came out of helping others. That's from Danny Trejo. And then the next one is anyone could wear the mask. You could wear the mask. If you don't know that before, I hope you do now. Miles Morales, as said in Into the Spider-Verse. So thank you for sending those, Geoff. Next, these come from Jay Hayes. These are pictures dating back to April 2020 on the Sunset Strip. This was early in the kind of people having fun with their marquees thing. The Roxy Theater says, don't touch me. Which, if I'm not mistaken, the Roxy was one of the places where Rocky Horror was playing here in LA.
The stage show?
The stage show.
Oh.
Interesting.
And
I saw
then
the Toadies there. I saw the Toadies at the Roxy. They were great. They did the whole Possum Kingdom album. Go ahead.
And then we're now seeing a picture of the Quiet Place Part 2 billboard. March 20, I missed that when it came out. I think
my friend Gary every couple of days will take a picture of that and post it on his Instagram story.
Well,
is that still up? Maybe
it's still up.
Well, you know where it's also still up, you guys, and I posted this on our Breakfast All Day Instagram story, right? Is Century City. It is the giant billboard over the Century City Theater where we've seen so many movies over the years. And they haven't changed it, and it's like 6 months later.
Because nobody's paid to put something else up?
A little on the nose, but there you have it.
All right. So next up, this is a picture that Keith Dugas sent us. This is the Royal. We've talked about this theater and the programming that's being done there on their marquee. He said last week it read All the President's Men and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels as the double bill. This one now playing Monsieur Hulot's Holiday.
Monsieur Hulot's Holiday.
Monsieur Hulot's Holiday. What? Anyway, coming soon when Father was away on business.
It's French. The H is silent.
Both great movies.
And last one was one I found. Not really a movie theater, but it's the Milky Way ice cream shop, and the marquee says, "To whoever stole my antidepressants, I hope you're happy."
That is so funny, Matt. Where is that?
I don't know. I just saw it online and grabbed it.
Oh, that's a good one. And oh God, I want a soft serve. It's been so long.
You can still do that. that can still be done.
I guess.
Yeah.
I have a thing. I have a thing we need to talk about. So the State Fair of Texas, is not doing it this year for obvious reasons, but they have set up a thing where you can pay $65 and more, depending on for how much food you want to get.
Come and fry stuff for you?
Well, no, you get a drive-through experience where you get a photo with Big Tex, which is the big giant cowboy statue when you come in. And then like you get corny dogs and soda and like fries and like this list of a fried biscuit or one of the deep fried Oreos rather. This list of things that you can get they'll bring them to you in your car so you can have your Texas Fair food experience without having a Texas Fair this year. My only complaint, no tornado tater, which is my very favorite thing, which is when they spiral slice an entire potato and deep fry it. It's the best. Also, no barbecue bologna sandwich, which I also love. For my good friend Ann Alexander, she will be mad that there is no pimento cheese sandwich because that was always her favorite thing at the fair every year. But nonetheless, if you're in Texas, particularly if you're in Dallas-Fort Worth, and you really have a hankering for a Fletcher's corny dog this year, the State Fair of Texas has got you covered, but it's going to cost you.
I feel like deep fried Twinkies. Yes, I feel like deep fried Twinkies are also a big thing that they've had at the State Fair of Texas.
Oh, sure. Deep fried anything. They did do deep fried butter one year, but it was essentially a deep fried biscuit that had butter in the center of it, and But
deep
yeah,
fried butter on a stick.
If you name it, they can either fry it or they'll freeze it and cover it in chocolate. Like I remember one year the frozen chocolate covered key lime pie on a stick. So good.
Wow.
Yeah.
My mind is blown.
Holy fuck.
Wait, can you say that again?
God.
Say that whole thing again. What is it again?
Frozen chocolate covered key lime pie on a stick.
Fuck, I want that right now.
Right? I know. It was so good.
I mean, it's no pizza in a cup, but
Ooh. There's no Frito pie.
It's no chicken sandwich where the bun is a Krispy Kreme jelly donut.
Texas is good for so many things. All right. So thank you for all of your marquees, you guys. Please keep coming, even if they are a little bit older, even if they're not movie theaters. We really love seeing what the world is like where you live. So please keep sending them in.
Exactly. Even if your marquee writers have lost their sense of humor at this point, no one blames them for it. Anyway, thanks for watching. You can, of course, please like this video. You can subscribe here at YouTube. Follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We're continuing our recaps of HBO's Lovecraft Country and kicking off our discussion of HBO's The Vow, which is already really fascinating. So have a good week. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.